Good morning. Good morning and welcome to Coffee Moaning. I hope you're well. I thought I'd wear my Boy Scouts outfit today. I'm a member of the Cub Scouts. It's actually an old G-Star shirt, but I feel like a Boy Scout. Dib, dib, dob, dob, and all the rest of it. If you're listening on podcast, apologies. I'm wearing a full Boy Scout outfit. So you might fancy going over to YouTube to check that out. Morning, April Hill. Morning, Lou Sheard. Morning, Steph Whelan. How are we all? There's a really curious, just kicking off with something, you know what it's like when you meet people, when you see people, when you're having a natter first thing in the morning. The first thing that struck me was apparently there's a news story floating around that Donald Trump is not at all happy about Fox News using the really orange photos of himself. And as someone quite rightly identified, is that really at the top of his list of worries right now? Is which photos Fox News? Yeah, I think he's a bit aggrieved that people only ever use silly photos. I mean, I must admit, with Boris Johnson, I always like a silly photo, but then he pulls a silly face. If they pull a silly face, you've got to use a silly photo. How are we all? It's Friday. It's raining in London. Is it raining? Is it raining where you are? Perhaps. It's really, really weird. Some days it sounds like I can hear you all, and some days I feel like I can't. So could you all shout in unison right now, good morning, or shout coffee moaning or something like that? Why does it say Saturday? Oh, yeah, it says Saturday Papers. That's annoying, isn't it? That's a hangover. It's not the Saturday Papers at all. I wonder if I can change that. Let's have a look. No, I can't. Let's see if I can change it on here. Oh, hang on. The dynamic camera grid automatically. Oh, got it. No, we don't want that, do we? Cancel. Oh, what's happened? Don't want that. Oh, hang on. Let's see if I can change it here. Solo layout, Saturday Papers, remove from stream. No, can't change it, I'm afraid. You're going to have to stick with me. Afraid it's the Saturday Papers. Good moaning, says Vicky Waiting. Why does it always rain when it reaches the weekend? Asks Zoe Agnew in the live stream. Let's just say it's Saturday. Let's just say, yeah, but then we don't get Saturday, do we? Then tomorrow's Sunday, and then we miss Saturday. So let's not say. I don't know. I know what you're saying. It's very miserable in Nottingham, but not raining yet. Says Helen Groves. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well. You'll have probably seen from the title one of the top stories. This story broke yesterday, didn't it? The sad passing away of Sir Michael Parkinson. One wants to say tragic. It's always tragic. It's always sad. I mean, tragic, I think, is such a sort of loaded word. So I don't know, tragic. I don't know if it's tragic. He led a full life, like so many people over a certain age. But and so many people over a certain age haven't. But I mean, you hear the word tragic, but it's sad. It's definitely sad. And what do you think, guys? I mean, for anyone who's not from the UK, Michael Parkinson was a sort of chat show host. He was our sort of first celebrity chat show host. I mean, when I say celebrity, I mean he became a celebrity himself. But he was renowned for getting interviews with really top end kind of, not just people of show business and what have you, but sport. I mean, you remember his Muhammad Ali, George Best. He did lots of David, interviews with all sorts of people. They say that he kind of launched Billy Connolly's career, much in the same way that Terry Wogan did with Terry Christian. Not Terry Christian. What's the name of the guy from Red Dwarf? What's the name of the Liverpudlian Scouse poet? Do you know what I mean? But anyway, so Michael Parkinson. So the front of all the papers today, let's have a little look at them. The front of all the papers today have Goodbye to the Best, Michael Parkinson, 1935 to 2023. And there's a sort of photo amalgamation of all of his guests there on the front of the Metro. Craig Charles, thank you very much. That's it. At the front of the Mirror. So Michael Parkinson, king of the chat show, dies at 88. Incredible story of a miner's son with touch of stardust. The King, obviously, infamously. Again, for those of you in the UK, we used to have an entertainer called Rod Hull and Emu, and Emu was an emu with his hand up it, which would attack people. That was it. It was kind of, I think it was kids' entertainment, but it kind of reached into adult entertainment. I mean, again, it was another one of those aspects of 1970s entertainment that I don't think you'd be able to get away with in today's landscape. But yeah, he was famously attacked on the show. Kind of went a bit too far, I think. Obviously, interviewed Muhammad Ali, the greatest. Very tense, very terse interview. Vicky Waiting, not sure why Emu was funny, but it was. Yeah, it was. I think it was the fact that he had sudden attacks, didn't he? He'd have a sudden. You knew it was coming, but it was all about the timing. Yeah, very odd. Mr. Front of the Guardian, there is Michael Parkinson, King of Chat dies 88. Front of the Telegraph, there he is again. There's lovely big almond slopey shaped eyes. And there he is, really nice photograph of him laughing on the front of the Times. I think without him, it would be safe to say you wouldn't have someone like Graham. I think the only person who comes close to doing something similar is Graham Norton. But yeah, please share with us who your favourite interviewee was. Jane Bentley says the Les Dawson interview was quite famous too. I mean, so many of them were great. Peter Kay's video, Amarillo. Oh yes, was really good. Parky, wasn't it? There is Peter Sellers. There he is, Billy Connolly, even. He had some absolute sort of standout stars, and very famously, he interviewed Meg Ryan, and she gave him like one-word answers, didn't she? What had happened there? Catherine Cronin, what a lovely thing to say. He epitomized safety and relaxation. Yeah, I mean, Graham Norton, I totally agree. It's a lovely way of putting it. And someone said there can't be Graham Norton, Steph Whelan. Graham Norton is a different kind of A-list interviewer, isn't he? He's a kind of roaster. He sort of roasts them. Whereas Parkinson was much more interested in, he was that old-fashioned kind of, he was warm, he was avuncular. He wasn't interested in laying traps for his interviewees, but he was interested because, sometimes you can have someone who lays a trap and you can see that they're just after the headline, they're just after the trip up, they're just after the kind of, the clickbait in modern day parlance and all that kind of stuff. They're looking for their moment, their sort of ounce of flesh, if you like. And what he did was he will have always obviously have known that there was a killer point or a crunch piece of information or a tricky, touchy, tetchy part of their life or career that he wanted to home in on. But he never made it obvious. And I think when he got there, I always remember him, and I remember watching him from my grandfather's sort of knees, if you like. And his first show was in 1971. I remember watching him, and I remember thinking, God, this guy is incredibly charming and not creepy. But he would just get into quite serious conversations. I just like that. Sir Elton John said he was a real icon who brought out the very best in his guests. Michael Caine likewise said he brought the best out of everyone he met. He always wanted the interviewee to shine. And I think that's interesting too, is that even if he had someone on, oh wow, Helen Mirren interview was the one that woke me up to sexism in the industry. Absolutely. Yeah, there you go. Even though he was after his headline, if you like, but not as obviously as anyone else, and even though he would probably take most interviewees through a journey where the viewer got something really unique and special and different, something they hadn't heard before, I think, as David Attenborough said there, he was ultimately always interested in the welfare, but it was an interview for the interviewee. So even if he hit upon a difficult subject, it would have been done classily, if you know what I mean. So, so it's a real loss, and it's a real skill. It's a real skill to do what he did. And I'm loath to say, oh, the good old days and all that malarkey and all that kind of stuff. I mean, things have moved so far. I mean, look at, where we put out content, what we do, modern life. It's just different, isn't it? I mean, television is no longer the big sort of destination place that it used to be for behind or in front of the camera, or for stars and celebrities. I mean, just look at social media, for example. What I think he did have, he almost had on television, he presented on television, the most sophisticated and sort of nuanced form of interviewing that you will often get like if you're reading a magazine and you get a 4-page features interview with someone. It was like that, but on telly. So he had that capacity. Terry Wogan was very good too, Ellery Jones. You're absolutely right. Terry Wogan was good. I like Terry Wogan. He was good. He was the sort of other biggie. But I don't know, Michael Parkinson seemed to sort of... You felt Michael Parkinson was respected by the people he interviewed, even if they didn't like him. I think that's the important... Oliver Reed. Didn't he run in with a... He didn't run in with a gun, but didn't he sort of... Didn't he kick... Didn't he smash things up or something? Wasn't it diabolical? Yeah, his mother-in-law dated Terry. Wow, Catherine Cronin. Sorry, just hear someone screaming in the street. He was respected and was respectful, says Sandy. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. A couple of other elements of his story that I just thought were interesting to share. Piers Morgan. Now, we're not big fans of Piers Morgan. But Piers Morgan talked interestingly about today, and in fact, actually, we're going to talk about what makes a narcissist. And I found this story first, and then I was looking at the narcissistic story, and I was thinking, what was the intention behind? So Piers Morgan remembering Michael Parkinson, but really Piers Morgan remembering Michael Parkinson is about him remembering how he was the only interviewer to get the interviewer of all interviewers to cry. And then I was thinking, well, let's have a look at the word narcissism in a minute. But let's just treat this for what it was in terms of Sir Michael Parkinson. This was the moment that, in his life stories, Piers Morgan interviewed him, apparently in the green room or in the dressing room beforehand. Michael Parkinson said, the last fucking thing you're going to get me to do is cry. I love that. He's a sturdy, was he Barnsley, Yorkshireman, wasn't he? He was a Yorkshireman through and through. That sort of tough, slightly grumpy, but you're not gonna crack a nut. You're not gonna crack. My granddad wishes he was from Yorkshire. He was from Stoke. He had such admiration, did my granddad. And in fact, Michael Parkinson reminds me of my grandfather, except my grandfather, very in great contrast to Parkinson, didn't say much at all, unfortunately. But he was of that generation. Anyway, so Piers Morgan was talking about when he was on Life Stories, Parky said to him, "You're not going to make me cry, I'm tough as old boots, me." And then, of course, they got talking about Parkinson's father. And Michael Parkinson was talking about how when his father died, he was a pit man, he worked in the pits. And when he died, he remembers him dead and them sort of transporting his body essentially in a bag, a sort of a body bag, I guess, of sorts from their home. And he remembered thinking, is this really all his life amounts to? I mean, obviously, no one who dies amounts to the flesh and bones that are there on the table. And in that moment, he broke down, and he broke down massively, and they had to stop recording. And this is a still from it. And the reason this really kind of hit me, because I want to also share with you, someone mentioned it just a moment ago, Dickie Bird, who was a cricketing umpire, or is a cricketing umpire, was very good friends with Michael Parkinson. And I just want to show you an interview with Dickie Bird, which was done yesterday, I think, remembering Michael Parkinson. And, almost sort of reaching out from the legacy that is quite clearly Michael Parkinson's interviewing career and who he is and what he did. This idea of men of a certain age, men of that really different age, of a different culture, a different upbringing, a tougher environment, there wasn't room for emotion, there wasn't room for feelings. And I thought, proud Yorkshireman, stiff upper lip thing, we got a bit of it. I met a couple of sort of guys, see them, it's that kind of, real admirably tough. And then beneath it all, they had to stop recording because he was literally caught unawares by his upset. And he said, "My God, that was obviously 40 years of grief." He threw it away by saying, "Sorry, I started to blub and fall apart and all that kind of stuff," as they would. But it put me in mind. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys have had this. I remember one time my granddad really breaking down and crying. And in a weird way, what makes it all the more emotional is not knowing that they felt that but didn't show it. Because I think for some reason, what I'm trying to say is, for some reason, don't you think we all try and sort of hold it in high esteem, the idea that your stiff upper lip is seen as a good thing? And in some regards, of course it is, because otherwise we'd all be blubbering messes walking out of doors all the time, wouldn't we? And yet, if only so many men and women of previous generations could have felt safe feeling and expressing what they felt. That's my loss around my granddad, is that I feel that there were rivers ran deep, but there was no cultural or generational opportunity for him in any way, not even if he wanted to know how to access those emotions. And I think it's at moments like this around loss that you really see how deeply churning and emotional someone who otherwise normally seems really tough can be. Kylie Mitchell, absolutely nothing wrong with having a good cry. That's exactly what I'm saying. But what I'm interested in here is the generational difference, and we must all have had grandfathers and grandmothers. My nan, Nanny Thelma, didn't cry much. Remember her crying when her brother died. That was it. But I'm just going to show you. This is Dickie Bird, who, if you don't know who Dickie Bird is, he's probably one of our most famous historic cricketing umpires. But they were Yorkshiremen. They were friends, I believe, since the age of 14. I just think this is really, really moving.
First of all, when I heard the news this morning, I was completely stunned and shocked, and I shed a few tears, because I've known Sir Michael since he was 14. We were 14-year-old kids in Barnsley here, the son of coal miners. Because, you know, Barnsley was a coal mining town in those days. And I was completely shocked, because I only spoke to him yesterday. We had a long chat yesterday. I know he hasn't been well. He hasn't been well at all. And his voice yesterday, it didn't sound as if it was strong. It was a weak voice I heard, and I knew then that there was something wrong with him. We cracked a few jokes together. We had a few tears in our eyes, and we said goodbye to each other at the end of the phone call, as if we had this feeling that we wouldn't see each. Excuse me. I had this feeling we wouldn't see each other again. And you know, we said goodbye, and that was it. And as I've known Michael for what, 74 years now, and he's been my close friend, not only my close friend, but my very, very special friend. And it was so sad when I heard the news this morning. And
oh God. Oh, I mean, I think there's the personal contingent to that is my granddad was a huge fan of Dickie Bird, the umpire, as well. But I mean, oh my God. I mean, just to be caught like that. And he's talking about male friendship of a time, you know, the intensity of feeling is always, this is the thing. The intensity of feeling is always there for us humans. Even, you know, even if you put on the harshest exterior, deep in there. I mean, I remember, interestingly, years ago, I made a film with Janet Street Porter, and, you know, she's a tough cookie. I mean, she's a tough cookie. She squared up to me at one point. She wanted to walk off set early. I said, absolutely not. And weirdly, she kind of, you know, when she's met with light, she'll respect that. And there was one moment where we used to make a show which was a bit like This Is Your Life, and someone had sent a message to her, and we played this message to her. And I was watching, I was on the camera filming her, and we were filming her in extreme close-up. And as she turned back round to Nigel, who was interviewing her, she said, "You nearly made me cry." And it was like, and the point about that is that she comes across as so profoundly tough and impenetrable, and like she wouldn't court that kind of emotion. And so it was a really nice moment, because you saw everyone in our crew immediately sort of soften, because it was quite a bristly environment, and suddenly went, oh, you know, she too feels, breathes, eats, loves, and all the rest of it. And so when you see someone as tough as him, and you just see it, you can't get away from it. You can't escape it. You can't, if you know, the feelings, you might hide them, you might deny them, you might prevent them. But wow, you know, it's a toughie. So So I don't know. I just find the big story around Michael Parkinson, and seeing Dickie Bird's emotional response, and that generational thing. What were so many? I mean, we know that men were in control throughout history, but what were so many men and women of of our grandparents' generation? What were they really feeling? And I think, again, thinking about Michael Parkinson's skill as an interviewer, wow, that a man of his background, of his upbringing, the toughness, wouldn't have courted kind of emotions, that he could be such a nuanced, layered, caring, but firm prober, if you like, of celebrity. Wow. I think really, yeah, something quite significant has been lost there that I don't think we'll not ever get again, because the landscape's changed. But I don't think we'll even ever be able to quite fully comprehend what skills are required to be that. Do you know what I mean? So there we go. That was Michael Parkinson. Now, as I was briefly mentioning there, Piers Morgan was talking about how he was the only man to get Michael Parkinson to crack. And then I was looking into what is narcissism. Okay, I want to ask you all, what for you? Okay, first of all, do any of you live in the shadows of, alongside, or in relation to what you would call a narcissist? Because the term narcissism itself, although it's a term that we all use, narcissistic personality disorder, I think, as we remember from the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case, I don't think it, strictly speaking, is a psychoanalytical condition or psychotherapeutic condition, is it? But share with us. Whilst I have a sip from my Sexpresso. I know someone who went out with a narcissist, says Tony Dunsford. The ego of Piers is too much, Rio chap. My mother, I'm afraid, Anne-Marie Lucker. You poor thing. That must be tough for the parent. That's okay. So, and what is narcissistic, Julie? It's a big question, isn't it? Narcissism. This is a sort of sense of, what is narcissism? Narcissism is a sense of grandiosity, a sense of, I mean, a good example that people often sort of reach towards is Donald Trump or Elon Musk as a kind of perfect manifestation of narcissism, a sort of self-obsession, a sort of belief that one is better than others, a desire to be seen as better than others, an inability to ever take ownership or responsibility for your own behavior when it hurts others, i.e., if you get hurt as a narcissist, it's someone else's fault. But if as a narcissist you hurt someone else, they made you do it. I think that's a really key aspect of this. So the chances are everyone has encountered a narcissist. I do genuinely think one of the dangerous aspects of narcissism at all, here we go. Look, Zoe, I got out of a very toxic narcissistic friendship a few months ago. Best feeling ever, feeling of freedom. Natasha Milchin, my mother's got a narcissistic side for sure. Someone who never thinks about anyone else or feels guilt. Faith Goodman. Yeah, I mean, an aspect of narcissism and being a sociopath in a sense is no sense of sort of moral. You don't feel shame or guilt or responsibility. BK, mother is a narcissist. Steph Whelan, yes, my best friend is dating a narcissist. He smashed up a wardrobe because she looked at another man. Apparently, then she apologized for it. Oh my god. Moira Instance, I live with a narcissist and oh my god, it's a nightmare. Can't afford to get away. Oh, sweetheart. YTU's a narcissism makes my skin crawl. It makes my skin crawl. Yeah, Erin. Hi, Erin. How are you? I don't know if my mother is one or not. She's certainly convinced that everyone else in the world is the problem and not her. Interesting point you make there, Erin, actually. Here's the thing. I think we use the term narcissism very quickly in selfie culture. We're all taking images of ourselves. One of the weird thing about selfie culture is although it's everywhere, everyone taking images of themselves. Taking photographs has been around for years. Family albums have been around for years. Having photographs and portraits on your walls isn't a completely new phenomenon. So the act of taking photographs of yourself, I don't think automatically means you're a narcissist. I think there's a narcissism, lowercase n, little tiny word, in everyone, insofar as everyone is them. And in a sense, if you have if you're thinking about yourself in any sort of, not obsessive way, it's that the idea behind the word selfish. You can use the word you're selfish. You know what a selfish person is, but there's also being yourself. You can only actually be yourself in this world, can't you? So there is the act of being yourself. So I think parking that to the side, accepting that we all have an aspect of essentially having an image of ourselves and all that kind of stuff. Here's 9 signs of not having narcissistic personality disorder. 1, and it's quite a good acronym. This acronym is quite useful. Like the one I use from a 12-step recovery program, which is when people ask you if you're okay and you say, yeah, I'm fine. They said to us in rehab, they said fine is one of those words that's just used to kind of hold people at arm's length, to hold people at bay, parry them away. Fine, standing for false information nicely expressed. How are you feeling? Fine, but you're not fine. It's not necessarily saying you need to open it. I always remember my nan saying when she worked in the corner shop, she said, I asked someone the other day how they were, and they actually told me. I wish they'd leave me alone. They won't stop telling me how they are. I just ask it. Anyway, so in that instance, she wished they did say fine. But yeah, so 9 signs of narcissism. But yeah, this acronym is really good. Look at this. I found this. Special me. So each of these sort of 9 traits of narcissism, if you put them all together, it spells special me. So let's have a look at them. They are. See if these resonate. 1, sense of self-importance. 2, preoccupation with power, beauty, or success. 3, entitlement or entitled. 4, can only be around people who are important or special. Yeah. Haven't got time for ordinary Joes, in other words. 5, interpersonally exploitative for their own gain, just seeing what they can get out of everyone. 6, arrogant. 7, lack empathy. 8, must be admired. 9, envious of others or believe that others are envious of them. Does that resonate? It's a pretty good list. It's a pretty good list. Let's have a look at this. Bonnie Delaney, cluster B personalities are described as a dark triad by us in the field. Wow, Bonnie, that is interesting. Someone's asked, what field are you in? I want to know. Wow. So what is narcissism? It's tricky, isn't it? But one of the interesting things is that there's a new report in a science sort of journal, from an American science journal, talking about the fact that more often than not, we think that the narcissist is all about grandiosity, superiority, feeling the best, being sort of, really bold and kind of, believing you're invincible, the Messiah complex, almost feeling like you've been put on earth and everyone is gaining from your approach. But there's an interesting article about the idea that there is a flip side to narcissism where the predominant presentation, if you like, or emotional presentation can be a vulnerability. It's not just people who are grandiose and what have you, but narcissism can work through being sort of, introverted too, and interior and kind of selfish and self-obsessed in a sort of, essentially it's all about you, but you might not be kind of proposing to the world that you're the biggest and the best thing and the most important thing. You could be suggesting quite the opposite. So you can get narcissists. They are looking into the idea that there is a sort of 2 opposite ends of the spectrum, if you like, when it comes to narcissism. If you like, for want of a better expression, the sort of Donald Trump expression. But then at the other end, of an incredibly sort of enclosed, retreated, hidden, self-harming almost. Think of extreme self-harm as a kind of and that's not to say people see the problem with all these things. The problem with all these tags is as soon as you use one phrase, people go, "Well, no, not everyone who does that. That doesn't mean everyone who self-harms or everyone who's vulnerable." All that kind of stuff. But I do think it's interesting. I was worried that it was sat then looking at the tag on screen. Oh, you thought it was Saturday? That's what you mean. Tony Dunsford, everyone else's fault. All the silent treatment makes the victim feel like they're going mad, all control based. Yeah, absolutely. So it's not just about, and that's a good point, because actually the activities of a narcissist aren't just about winning and proving they've won and being sort of taking the front foot in that regard. It can also be that they will withdraw their sort of affection or their attention or their interest in you in a really aggressive fashion. I mean, a classic example of that is, you can have passive aggressivity. For me, passive aggressive is one of the most aggressive aggressives there are, because passive aggressivity seeks to hide behind a cultural assumption that just aggressive in and of itself is so much worse that to be passive aggressive can't be as bad. And actually, it so can. Believe me, I have great experience of this. Passive aggressive. I mean, trolls engage in huge, they spend all their time being passively aggressive, because to be aggressive, it gets you blocked quite quickly. So passive aggressivism is a huge part, I think, of narcissists. And in fact, trolling is an interesting one, because I think, the whole troll action, we're researching a project about trolls where, the act of trolling is a narcissistic fix. It's about them. They're wanting to get their attention. They're wanting to cause, some kind of, explosion. But it's not actually about who they're going for. It's about them. It's about them. So passive aggressivity for me is a huge key component. And there are lots of studies showing that if you are living or struggling with or trying to work out, then no amount of course correcting, shifting your behavior, shifting your strategy, tactics with someone you're related to or friends with who is a narcissist, no amount of reconfiguring yourself in position to them is going to work. Because go back to this idea. Anything for a narcissist, anything that if anyone hurts them, it's the person who's hurt them's fault, as it is for anyone. But if they hurt anyone, the narcissist, it's everyone else's fault, because they've been forced to do it. So the gaslighting, classic example, gaslighting, passive aggressivity, they all start to feed into each other. Manipulation, etc. Is being a victim all the time narcissism? I don't know if that's necessary. I don't know. Again, I don't know. You have to go case by case basis, but I think that's kind of what we're talking about here. Yeah. The idea that the person feels everyone and everything everyone does is everyone else's fault. And in fact, the weird thing about mental health and crises and having breakdowns and being an mental health person with ments is that nothing's anyone's fault, really. You are just reacting and responding and processing stuff. And then there's the cruelty. Thank you, Emotional Urban Homestead. Please follow her if you can. It's the emotional cruelty. I mean, the thing where I struggle with the term narcissism, I don't know if any of you who live with or struggle with this, working with this, is when people say, almost by saying it's narcissism, there's a kind of letting them off the hook. There's a kind of, well, they're not really aware that they're doing this, so therefore. But when you come across moments with the narcissist where there are acts or not, once again, passive aggressive acts, so things that aren't done or things that are undone or things that are unsaid or things that have been said and then are resaid in a different way and denied. I mean, another thing that I think happens with a lot of narcissists, they try to rewrite the truth. They try to rewrite what's happened to suit their narrative of feeling victimized or being in control. So you're right. I think a part of narcissism are on the vulnerability side of it. So you've got the grandiosity side, you've got the vulnerability side. I think the vulnerability side is about using the vulnerability to gain almost emotional grandiosity within your human relationships. YT user, they are aware that they're doing it. It's consciously planned out meticulously. That's the part of it that I struggle with, because I'm more than willing than the next person to be empathetic about this and say, okay, well, they're struggling with narcissism. But when you see in black and white the behavior, the comments, the deletion of comments, the changing of this, the saying of that, the shifting of what was the truth, the talking about my truth when we all know the shared truth, trying to pretend that things were tilted differently in order to justify the narcissist's vulnerable fix so they can get their hit. When you look at the details of it, it's sometimes very hard not to think that it's been done aggressively and purposefully. And that's really tough. Amy B, they live in an imaginary world where they believe they're right. And then when you're dealing with that, it's like someone in an alternate universe, which is why the only recommendation, and it's really meaningful, is to completely step back from the relationship. It's the only way. It's the only way. You've got to starve them of what they call their narcissistic supply. So there you go. It's just some thoughts. It's just some thoughts. I mean, I just know a lot of people struggle with the idea of narcissism and how it presents. And I was just struck by the idea that we have the most obvious examples, but actually it can present in some pretty curious ways. I was going to talk about the story, but I'm going to leave that one to Nads because she wanted to do it on Coffee Moaning, the idea of the TikTok influencer criticised for filming sad woman eating alone. But I'm going to hold that over. Which means it's Friday. It's Quiz of the Week, guys. Hashtag fuck off fun Friday. Fuck off fun Friday. Should we do Quiz of the Week? Are we up for it? Are we all in the room? Faith? Should we go? Should we do this thing? Get your pens and papers ready, guys and girls. We've got another 5 to 10 minutes of Quiz of the Week, but I can't find the bloody Quiz of the Week. So hang on one second. Bear with me whilst you all get your pens and papers. Here it is. Got it here. Now, I had a little brief kind of scoot through this. This is a tough one. I'm telling you now, I think I'm only going to get 2. So there were lots of people last week getting 7, was it? Or thereabouts. 6 or 7. But this week, I think I'm going to get 2 if I'm lucky. Sorry, I'm making up pick 0 of this. Sorry, just one sec. There we go. I've got it. So let me get rid of that. Let me get rid of that. Bless him, Dickie Bird. That's just too heartbreaking. Seeing a generation of older men and women when they get upset is just, because for them it's just like a big no-no, and it shouldn't be a big no-no. It's really weird. I've come out of this whole Michael Parkinson thing. I mean, I love my nan so much, but we've talked about that so much. I came out of the Michael Parkinson thing, wanted to give my granddad a hug. Yeah, made me miss him. And as I say, weird, because he'd have probably just sat behind his Daily Telegraph and not watched Michael Parkinson. I think he liked Michael Parkinson. I think he did, because he was a Yorkshireman. My granddad wanted to be a Yorkshireman, desperately. Last of the Summer Wine was always on. Okay, enough of this rambling. Okay, guys, so here we go. Question 1. We up for it? Student Anastasia Mayers and her mother Keisha Shahaf made history as the first mother-daughter duo to visit space. But where is the Antigua-born teenager studying? Is it Aberdeen, St Andrews, is it Aberdeen, Edinburgh, or St Andrews? I didn't know the answer to this one. Student Anastasia Mayers and her mother Keisha made history as the first mother-daughter duo to visit space. But where is the Antigua-born teenager studying? Is it A, Aberdeen, B, Edinburgh, or C, St Andrews? Lee Durrant, I've gone for the same answer. Absolutely gone for the same answer. Well, how are we doing? Narcissism. That's a good one. Just sending a text. The answer is A, Aberdeen. I'm just going to say Scotland, cheeky. The BBC's historic Maida Vale studios were sold to a group led by the Oscar composer Hans Zimmer, Oscar-winning composer. Although it was home to the best of the BBC's music for 90 years, for what purpose was the complex originally built? So what were the BBC's Maida Vale studios originally built for? Was it A, a cinema, B, a concert hall, or C, an indoor roller skating rink? Good question. The BBC's historic Maida Vale studios were sold to a group led by Oscar-winning composer Hans Zimmer. Although it was home to the best of the BBC's music for 90 years, for what purpose was the complex originally built? Lots of you saying concert hall music. You'd think so, wouldn't you? Music studio, all that kind of cinema. I would have gone for cinema, but April Hill is right. It's actually an indoor roller skating rink. Question 3. England football captain Harry Kane joined German champions Bayern Munich on a 4-year deal, ending his record-breaking career at Tottenham. During his time at Spurs, Kane was the Premier League's top scorer three times. Which 2 other players but also won 3 Golden Boots? So which of these pairs of other players achieved the same thing? Was it A, Wayne Rooney and Alan Shearer, B, Mohamed Salah and Wayne Rooney, or C, Alan Shearer and Mohamed Salah? So which two other players also won the three golden boots? That means being the league's top scorer 3 times. But which pair? Was it A, Wayne Rooney and Alan Shearer, B, Mohamed Salah and Wayne Rooney, or C, Alan Shearer and Mohamed Salah? Yeah, Jesus. I mean, talk about needing to know. Yeah, Jesus. Lee, do you see? You're a football fan? No, it's B. Sorry, it's not. It's C. C, Alan Shearer and Mohamed Salah. Flipping heck. Wilko, the high street homeware retailer, question 4, collapsed into administration after failing to secure a rescue deal. But where did the company open the first of its 400 stores? Was it A, Leicester, B, Liverpool, or C, Plymouth? Where did Wilko open the first of its 400 stores? A, Leicester, B, Liverpool, or C, Plymouth? How you doing, guys? Naught. Natasha Milchin, 0. A, it's Leicester. Quite a few of you got that right. Question 5. A retired American football star whose story was adapted into an Oscar-winning movie, The Blind Side, has alleged that the film is built on lies. Michael Oher says he was never adopted and was instead allegedly tricked into an arrangement from which they made millions of dollars. But which team did Michael Oher But which team did Michael Oher win the Super? But with which team did Michael Oher win the Super Bowl? This is the film actually that I think Sandra Bullock. There's a sort of, isn't there a social media sort of campaign to get her to lose her Oscar? How heartless is that? Right off the back of her losing her husband, and like it was her fault. I mean, for God's sake. So, which football team was it? A, the Baltimore Ravens, B, the Denver Broncos, or C, the New England Patriots? Guys. I told you, I reckoned I was going to get one. I got this one wrong as well. Retired American football star who claims the film The Blind Side was all a pack of lies. What American football team was he with when they won the Super Bowl? Was it A, the Baltimore Ravens, B, the Denver Broncos, or C, the New England Patriots? Butterfly Bell, you're right. It's the Baltimore Ravens. Question 6. Let's hope we get this one. Oh, Christ. Question 6. Tributes have been paid to the UK's first Eurovision singer, Patricia Bredon, who died aged 88. But in which European city did the inaugural song contest take place? In which European city did the first Eurovision song contest take place? Was it A, Brussels, B, Frankfurt, or C, Paris? A, Brussels, B, Frankfurt, or C, Paris? Butterfly Bell, you know what? I'm not doing well. Lee Durrant, Dublin. You back of the class, Lee. Get to the back of the class right now. The correct answer is Frankfurt. And final question. Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones. A newly found species of snake in Peru has been named after actor Harrison Ford in honor of his environmental work. And of course, the fact that Indiana Jones hates snakes. But which other kind of creature has also been named after the Indiana Jones and Star Wars star? So there's another creature that's been named after him. Was it A, an ant, B, a beetle, or C, a horsefly? I purely guessed this one based upon a particular scene or scenes in a particular Indiana Jones film. So which other creature is named after Harrison Ford? A, ant, B, beetle, or C, horsefly? Siobhan Jordan's out. I give up, Mark, says Lee. It's a tough one. I told you it's a toughie this week, isn't it? Lots of you saying beetle. Natasha Milchin is saying ant. Odd China Tea Shop saying ant. Are you thinking of the same film I'm thinking of? You're right. It's ant. How many did you get, guys? How well or not did you do? Be honest. Be honest, guys. Remember, it's the winning, not the taking part that counts. So if you didn't get any, it's a bad day. 0 out of 7, says Lynn Sheard. 1. It's like from the sublime to the ridiculous. Last week it was like 6 or 7s. Everyone was getting, look, 1, 2, 0. Ali P got 4. Well done. Bloody hell. Well, 4 is good. Into April Hill, 3. That's not bad at all. Dale Ibbotson, only 1. That was atrocious for me. I have to say, I got 1. No good. Okay, guys, look, have a lovely Friday. Vloggy stuff is going to be landing this weekend. It's a pre-recorded Curly Cooks tomorrow, but it will be premiering, so you can have a live chat whilst